I am here with my incredible client, Shannon Leary, on International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day. So fun to be able to spend a little piece of our International Women's Day with some amazing ladies. So Shannon joined me in my coaching program, a little over 3 months ago. And I work with women to heal their relationships with food and their bodies. So anybody who has a stressful relationship to food, whether it's like emotional eating or just years of chronic dieting, like yo-yo dieting, or being on the wagon, off the wagon, binge eating, restricting, like so many of the things that a lot of us have been through. That's what I help women permanently heal. And along the way, we end up healing a lot of our relationships to our bodies as well, because it's kind of impossible to do the relationship with food stuff without also letting your relationship with your body sort of be in the mix of these discussions too. So I'm just really excited for Shannon to share more with y'all. And I have some, at least one other client on here as well. You guys are welcome to chat with one another if you want to, while we're in this discussion. So welcome, Shannon. Thank you so much for being here and for being willing to share your journey with us. I'm so happy to have you. Do you mind just introducing yourself? Like, tell us a little bit about who you are, just a quick little bio.
Sure. I think almost everyone knows me. I'm so glad to see so many familiar faces. And Eleanor's here too, if you see her right there. She is a participant in International Women's Day as well. So I'm the mom to 3 boys. I mean, you guys know this, about 20. Jack is 20. He's going to be 21 next month. I know that's insane. 17 and 15. And, my oldest son, Jack, is on the autism spectrum. I'm a special education advocate, an advocate for disability rights. I don't know, my journey with Maria has been a long time coming. I'm so glad that I found her at the time that I did, because I think my life circumstances would have led me down a very, I don't know what the word for it is. Like the path of no, is that a thing? The path of no return, the
That sounds right. That sounds like a thing.
I don't know that I would have been able to bounce back or find this opportunity again. But I've had a long, challenging relationship with food, for sure. Food, diet. I think I've been on every freaking diet in the universe. And I've probably been on some of them with you all. I know, like Lisa Cronin, I mean, we were on that isogenics thing with the little dog treats that were it was just terrible. And intermittent fasting with little scraps of dog treats, terrible. Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, Nutrisystem, Beachbody, cleanses. I don't even know, like just so many. And they work in the moment, and then I, would gain back twice the weight, because I hadn't addressed what was at the root of the issue. And like, as Maria frequently says, it's rarely about the food. It's about the other stuff that's going on in life. So that's where I am. That was a long-winded introduction.
Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of women can relate. So many of the applications that I get for people to work with me, they say that same exact sentence. I've tried every diet, or I feel like I've tried everything. and they reach their wits' end. They're like, I can't keep living like this. I can't keep hopping from diet to diet, expecting different results, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I think we hop into the next diet, the next meal plan, the next program, thinking that this will be the one. This will be the one that will finally work. This one will be sustainable. This will be the one that I will stick with long-term, or that will help me keep the weight off long-term. And what we realize is like, it's just different iterations of the same thing, but it's really hard to spot now because there's this new wave of like wellness culture, or it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change, but it's all really just a diet. So Shannon, how did you get to the point where you realized this isn't actually working?
Well, I think, I think, you know, the last couple of years, as I've shared with most people, I think turning 50 was like sort of a crossroads for me, in a lot of different ways, but mostly along the lines of realizing that I had accepted a lot of things in my life that didn't really make me happy. And that includes this sort of obsession with weight loss and dieting and, you know, fitting into whatever, the skinny jeans, or, you know, and I had accepted behavior from people in my life that promoted a dysmorphia, you know, a bad body image. And I was tired, like actually tired. And so when I saw the posting about what you did on Catherine's page, it was purely by accident, but it was what I needed at the time. And I had never heard of anything like what you do. So it's quite remarkable. But I think that you know, 50, 51, COVID, sort of being trapped with myself for, you know, the last 2 years or so, I just did a lot of thinking about how unhappy I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So that life stage, I know, was and entering into your 50s. I know that for a lot of women, that's when they take a step back and they're like, I want a different future for myself. And especially if you have kids, you want to be modeling healthy behaviors to them. So one thing that really shifted things, I think, for you, Shannon, was to realize that you weren't failing at dieting. Dieting was failing you. Like, diets are not sustainable. Diets are not, and biologically, our bodies are not built to sustain food restriction. They fight back. And so when we end up binge eating, it's just a biological compensatory reaction to starvation. It doesn't mean that you lost willpower or that you're not strong enough. It was your body doing everything it could to just get its needs met. And so that's a huge reframe right there, is like, oh, I'm not necessarily like addicted to food, or I don't lose control around food because I'm not strong enough to stick to the diet. It's like, for so many reasons, diets aren't sustainable. They don't work for long-term weight loss. And the statistics on this are insane. Study after study shows that dieting fails like 95 to 98% of the time, meaning that it doesn't result in long-term weight loss for the vast majority of people. And usually the vast majority of people gain all their lost weight back and then some within 2 to 5 years, if not way sooner. So, you know, diets might work, quote unquote, short term, but long term, there's no long-term efficacy. So now that's binge eating. With emotional eating, I think that the other thing, Shannon, like on day one that we discovered together was just, we reframed your relationship to food pretty immediately, in that I was like, I'm glad that you've had food to cope. I'm glad that you've had something to cope in an otherwise like stressful or chaotic environment. And so I think that helps to alleviate some of the shame of like, you were just doing the best that you could with the knowledge and the skills and the tools that you had at the time. And that was actually a pretty effective coping tool because it regulates your nervous system, doesn't it? It's grounding, it's sensory. So it actually like makes logical sense. But then we get to this point where we're like, this doesn't feel like the most healthy or sustainable relationship to food. So we do want to make some changes moving forward. But I think it helps to just start from this place of like, have a little bit of like, ease up on yourself a little bit.
Yeah, which is not something that I'm really good at. I put a lot of pressure on myself for just about everything in my life. And I think, at the time that Maria is referring to, I was raising my family. My, partner was never home. There was, autism and challenging school situations, etc. And in the absence of a partner, food became that partner. And so I think like when Maria said that to me, like in it was probably our first meeting, like, thank goodness you had food. That was a complete reframe, because thank goodness I did have food, because God knows where I would be if I hadn't like eaten and, found comfort there and found solace there, because there weren't really like a lot of other places to find it.
That's right. And here's the other thing. Most people who label themselves as quote unquote emotional eaters are also dieting. So they're also like chronically underfed. So there's a really good chance that what feels like emotional eating is just eating. Like there's a lot of emotion happening while you're eating.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that like these emotions are driving you to eat. A lot of times it's like a legitimate lack of food that is driving you to need food, and it feels like quote unquote emotional eating, but it still is sort of just that like your body trying to get what it needs. Anybody who is dieting is feeling deprived, is feeling anxious, is feeling hungry a lot of the time, and those emotions in and of themselves could cause somebody to do what feels like emotional eating. So it's possible that the emotions that are driving you toward food are caused by a lack of food.
Yeah. And well, right, because in that, in that time period, well, I was still dealing with, I guess dysregulated or a poor body image. Let's just say that. So doing all of these cleanses and fasting and Beachbody 21-day torture, like those were the things that I was trying to regulate, to offset the eating attached to my emotions. So it was just, I was punishing myself, basically. That's what it comes down to. Punishing myself for, for not being in control and not being strong enough. Yeah. And at the time working with, two different times working with, personal trainers who were like, here, have Beachbody. This is, this will make you feel better. This will help your whatever. It'll help everything. And yeah, it just sort of made a mess. It made a complicated situation even worse, I think, and made me feel worse about myself.
Yeah. God, I mean, these are such complex issues too. And I don't want to place blame on the dieters themselves. We diet because we think that it's healthy, and we diet because we think that it will work. And people who are prescribing these things, like personal trainers, like I was a personal trainer and I did not know that that was harmful and that didn't work. So we only know, we can do better once we know better. But a lot of people just don't have access to this information yet. So one of the other reasons, I guess I want to just dive a little bit deeper into why dieting doesn't work term. So when we are restricting food, or we're restricting calories, or we're like eliminating entire food groups, your body doesn't know the difference between a diet and like legitimate, like being placed in a legitimate environment of food scarcity or famine. So what would the body do if it thought that there was a survival threat? It would go into fight or flight mode. And what it's going to do is slow your metabolism on purpose. It's going to store fat on purpose because it doesn't know when it's going to get enough of what it needs again. It doesn't know when it's going to get its energy needs met. So it's going to conserve while it can. And it doesn't feel safe, right? Because it's not getting its survival needs met through food. So that's why dieting is ultimately one of the strongest predictors of weight gain in the end, not weight loss. Because of that, just your body doing what it was designed to do, which is to keep you alive. So once we realize that, we're able to see, all right, so this wasn't entirely my fault that I was yo-yo dieting for decades, right? We're being sold a product that doesn't actually work. But the issue is the diet and weight loss industry will gaslight the consumer and say, if you just work harder, if you just eat cleaner, and if you just move more, this will work for you. You just have to work harder. But it won't work for you because it's a flawed, it's a design flaw.
Yeah. And I think, God, it's so pervasive too, you know, and
so what are some of, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So here's what I want to ask you. What are some of the biggest shifts or the biggest like aha moments that you had that have changed the way, like just transformed the way you relate to food and your body?
Well, I have, like, if you could see the bottom of my computer screen, I have all these like little sticky notes here that I write down. So I look at them when I'm looking at my computer, and they're basically either affirmations or, you know, comments about food. Like, there is no morality in food, which is like one of my favorites. Food is neither bad nor good. It's just food. And what is on my plate is not anybody else's business, which I love also, because I think when Marie and I started working together, it was around Thanksgiving, and I was stressed out around Thanksgiving because that's always a holiday for some reason, which I don't understand, why everybody gorges themselves on Thanksgiving and then talks about how much they ate. You know, it's kind of like a nightmare when trying to navigate that. But anyway, I have affirmations that I say every night before I go to bed, that I am safe, I am worthy, I can create peace, and my voice matters, because I found that I was listening to like the diet bullies in my head that were, you know, saying, you can do this if you're stronger. You're just not putting enough effort into it. But learning to push those guys away and listen to my own voice has been very hard. I'm still working on it, but it has allowed me to create peace, which is my ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Some of those shifts are key. The like removing morality from food. We know that there are nutritional differences food to food. We know that. But if we can stop judging ourselves so harshly for our food choices and quiet down some of those rules, like this is a good food, this is a bad food. If you eat this food, then you're off the program. And if you eat this food, then you're doing great. Then, you know, there's so much morality attached, and it gets in our way of actually making like solid nutrition choices. So what we can do is tune out some of the judgment, and then you can get curious about, how does this food feel physically in my body? What are the foods that make me feel energized, et cetera, and ask questions like that. Shannon and I did lots of like affirmation work together, and that works. Some clients love it. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's been one cool thing that Shannon and I have been able to do together, where a lot of these affirmations do center around like self-worth, and they center around your ability to create peace and experience joy. Because if you were to just truly like want the best for yourself and respect your body, you respect your body, you respect yourself, then you start to nourish yourself from a whole different posture than if you are in this like loss deprivation mentality of I need to change my body and I hate my body and I can't believe I let myself get to this point. And it's just like, I can't believe I let myself go. Then there's all of this shame around your body and you're making choices from such a defeated and disempowered place. So if we can at least like cultivate have some self-respect and talk to yourself in a more decent, more civil manner, and know that you are worthy of good things and you're worthy of experiencing pleasure, and all of this like totally changes the way that not only we relate to food, but like kind of what Shannon said in the beginning, it's not always about the food. This changes the way you show up in so many other areas of your life. And sometimes the way we relate to food, it's just like other things manifesting themselves in the food too. So we have to like, this is why this work requires a lot of courage, because there are layers and layers to what we're uncovering here. And how we relate to food in our bodies is so deeply personal. So it requires, like, Shannon, I'm so honored to how you trust me. Like, you really have to trust your provider to be able to share and be open and like go to some of these places, because it can be so uncomfortable. But I think you would say it's worth it, right? It's so worth it.
It is 100% worth it. And I will, if I may, just share, I think I shared this story with Maria early on about my relationship with food. Like, I might cry or get weepy, so just like keep going.
You're loud.
So one of my most profound memories of, again, Thanksgiving was, when I was probably 15 or 16, being at my parents' house, welcoming the family for dinner, and my uncle walking in and saying, "Wow, you look fat. It seems like you gained weight." And every freaking holiday he would do this to me. And I didn't know that was not something that, I mean, I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't really know what to do with it because it was a family member. So, maybe he knew more than I did or whatever. So like that like deep-seated long-term like hatred of myself, has sustained or remained for the last 40 years of my life. But I feel like I had to let that go. And I had to say it out loud to be able to heal. So that's where Maria came in. And so, but she handled it so beautifully too, but, by saying like, "I'm so sorry you went through that," and very empathetically and compassionately, which I think has helped to build our trust, my trust.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I do think it's important to bring these bodies, all these stories related to our bodies and what people have said about our bodies. And it's important to bring those to light because that directly influences the beliefs that you currently have about your body, like the beliefs that you're still holding on to about your body. And yes, I have said, like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. It's so not okay. It is so not okay. And I think that we need, to share these stories, alleviate some of the shame, and it does help us heal, to have a safe place to let some of this stuff go that we've been holding on to for so long. So I want to start sort of wrapping up here, but if you guys have any questions, I'd love for you to type it in the chat. I might not be able to get to it right now, but I'll flag it and I will message you. I'll message you separately. And there's also a link here if anybody is interested in getting support for themselves to heal their relationships with food or their bodies. There's an application there, and it doesn't, what do you call it? You're not committing to anything just by filling out that application. So like, that's just the first step, and we can explore what kind of support you need. There's no pressure to roll in anything there. Shannon, what would you tell somebody who is like in the spot that you were in maybe 3 months ago, who's considering getting support to heal their relationship with food, maybe they're like worried about investing in themselves or something like that, what advice would you give them?
Well, I got to tell you, okay, so this also goes back to something that has nothing to do with food, really. But I mean, most of you know that I'm going through a divorce, but in the time that I was married, I don't think I was ever encouraged to do anything that invested in me. Outside of like anything superficial, let's say that. Because it costs too much or insurance didn't cover it or whatever. And this was like sort of part of like me freeing myself from that by saying, you know what, I've been wanting to do this. I've been wanting to fix this. I've been wanting to address this for so long. Now that I'm at this point in my life, I'm doing it. And it felt so good on so many levels because it's also like like just like, screw you, man. I'm doing this. Yeah, I don't know if that's the best reason, but I think it speaks to just that whole turning point where I feel like I deserve to be better. I deserve to be happier. So.
You do. Heck yeah, you do. 1,010%. Can we just applaud Shannon right now? Everybody who's on this call, we love you, Shannon. You're such a baddie. Honestly, like I see this real empowerment and this newfound sense of freedom in you.
Yes.
Here's my last question. Yeah. What will be different for you now moving forward after you work through some of this stuff?
Well, I've said this from the beginning. My goal is peace. My goal is to not be like tearing up when I'm talking about this sort of stuff. Like I just want to be at peace. And like be able to go to a Thanksgiving dinner and not have these like, oh, you look so fat things in my brain. Or, go to whatever, tennis team dinner and not be thinking about, oh my gosh, is there too much food on my plate? That kind of thing. I just want peace in so many aspects of my life. So that's on my seat. I think if you see it, it says peace.
You have good handwriting too. But
yeah, I can't see.
You are well on your way, my friend, to just more peace than you've ever had, I think. And you're fighting for it.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, thank you guys so much for joining us on this Zoom. Thank you, Shannon.
Sorry it took so long.
For sharing your story. Yeah, no, all these technical difficulties. What madness.
Thank you, Lisa Cooperman.
So good to have you guys here. Thank you, Shannon, so much. And if y'all need anything, you can totally send me a private message me on Facebook, or whatever you need. Get in touch with Shannon. She'll tell you how to reach me. And you can fill out my application if you want. I put the link in the chat if you guys need support as well. All right. Happy International Women's Day. I hope you guys have a